morning and welcome back to Christ Blessed City podcast with me, Hilary.
And with me, Amy.
And today we have a very special guest with us.
Indeed.
Who is it, Amy?
It is Pastor John Pulford.
Hi Amy, hi Hilary. It's great to be with you.
Thanks for being here.
We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today.
Not at all, it's a real pleasure.
So today, with Pastor John Pulford, we'll be talking about the harvest season soon approaching and talking about things like faith, working in God's creation, patience that comes with it, and of course, ultimately, who is in control. So grab your Bible, a large cup of coffee, like all of us here, get cozy. We'll be back after a short break.
And welcome back. Now, John, you are now Reverend,
I am.
but this is not your first career.
Indeed it's not.
So, what was your first career?
Well, I was born and raised on a dairy farm. So when I left school at 16, I followed into my father's footsteps and spent 20 years milking cows twice a day.
Wow.
And being out in the fields and out in the world.
In all weathers,
In all weathers, all temperatures, absolutely. And then following that, economically, small family dairy farms became unviable, so I then trained to be a primary school teacher. I've spent 20 years in the classroom.
And herding cattle and herding children, is there a lot of difference?
Not really. Not really, no.
And herding parishioners, what about those?
They tend to go in different directions. Yes.
So there is a connection.
Yes,
there.
cows and children usually are fenced in, but parishioners
Yes.
perhaps aren't, so yes.
So we're more like sheep. which is
Yes,
handy.
less contained, yes. But not hugely dissimilar. There's shepherding involved in
Yes.
all aspects of it, definitely.
Do you ever miss it?
The dairy farm.
The dairy farming,
Yes.
I do now through rose-coloured glasses, I think. When it's a lovely summer's morning or a spring morning, I think,
Yeah.
yes, I do miss it.
But you still have some animals, don't you?
I do. We still live on the farm. We have a few sheep and there are cattle in the buildings through the winter. So I still get a fix of the farming. So it's great.
But somebody
Yes.
else is now actually farming the land.
Yeah. So
Best of both worlds. If you ask
absolutely.
me.
Indeed it is.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Yeah, it's great.
And I think they each have individual names.
The cows
Am I
used to have the
right?
cows had individual names. Yes, each one was named. Yes,
How is it
Is it
absolutely.
true
Is
you
that?
have to warm your hands before you attach their milking things?
No. No.
Maybe that was just goats. I'm not sure.
Maybe if you were milking by hand, you might need to warm your hands.
well,
But
this-
when it was
that's
machine
true.
milking, probably not. No.
No. Well, you live and learn, everybody. You live and learn.
Absolutely.
Who is Matilda?
Matilda is a newborn lamb who I am bottle feeding at the moment because she was abandoned by her mum. So every morning she comes running up to find me for her bottle of milk.
Oh, that's so cute. Now, I've seen a picture of Matilda and she really is
She is
cute.
cute. She's very cute.
We
yes.
need more proof for the podcast.
I'm not sure how we're going to prove that over the airwaves.
I'm not
Amy,
quite
but-
sure. No, I'm not sure.
But it's autumn, and I personally love autumn, so I'm biased because I was born in September. And everything about the nature is getting transformed. The richness of the colors, the air is crisp.
Yeah, it's my second favourite season. I'm a spring baby, so that's my favourite. What about you, John?
I'm a spring baby too. I love the spring.
Yeah.
Yep. The new leaves, the flowers, the birds.
Yes.
Yeah, I love
But
spring.
I love autumn too. Winter's too cold, summer's too hot if you're lucky.
But
Spring
it's
and autumn,
yeah,
perfect for me.
and it's the season when you can enjoy the fruits of your labor of a summer.
Absolutely.
Shall we call it that?
Yeah.
So would you say harvest is a special time for you, John?
It is a special time. I think from the farming background, it's that time when you have waited patiently for everything to come together.
Yeah.
And you are out in the fields. The days are long, but they're great. And you are just gathering everything in. The fruits of the labour from the last 12 months, really, from the autumn before when the seeds are sown.
But a hard slog, I should imagine.
It can be a hard slog.
And the weather's not always with you.
The weather is not always with you. It can be really frustrating at times. It can either be a very quick, short harvest like it was in 2022 or a more protracted one like it was this year with the showers in between. It wasn't quite such a good harvest season this year.
How does that fit in with your faith? I mean, does that mirror your personal journey in any way? Or
I suppose it's taken me a long time to get where I am.
I think
So,
I can certainly say Amy
so
can't,
so
she's far
it's a
too
case
young,
that
but, yeah.
Oh,
that God has a plan,
Yes.
and sometimes it takes longer
Yes.
to reach that plan, for us to reach God's plan for us.
Yes.
As you don't plant a seed and the next day you have a crop to harvest. It's a
That's
9,
right.
12 month, 9, 10 month process for the seed to germinate and to grow and to thrive and to produce its fruit. So yes, thanks.
And some people
Times
come
and
to their
seasons.
ultimate calling earlier than others. But
Absolutely.
then other people may have a longer journey because they've got different things they need to learn.
absolutely.
Absolutely. When I was a 4-year-old, my nursery school teacher did tell my mum that I would be a vicar.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
impressive.
But it's just taken 50 years to get there. So
And a little bit more, folks, but we won't go into
yes,
that.
yes.
We're not talking about age.
Just a little bit more.
Never too late, I say.
No.
So what are you going to be talking to us about today, John?
I would like to talk about really how faith is involved in the agricultural world, really, and
Hey.
the belief that most farmers have in the Creator. I think they appreciate that it doesn't just happen.
No.
It can't just have happened.
No.
There is a real miracle in every newborn lamb, every newborn calf, in the fact that you plant a seed and you get a crop,
Yes.
which is far more plentiful than the seed that you planted in the soil. So it's just, yeah.
And that tiny seed can grow to feed a whole
Absolutely,
family.
yeah. And the importance of patience in that too.
Yes.
We
Oh,
are
yes.
by nature impatient people, I think, but
Yeah.
you just have to wait for God's timing
Yeah.
and
100%.
reflect, yeah.
Because sometimes God even puts something on your heart, but it's not the right time.
Yep. Yeah.
It happened to me before, and I've seen it in other people. When I tried to push something that I knew was there, but I wasn't ready, it didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the doors were closed. The
I've been through
answers,
that. Yeah.
exactly, were no, sorry, can't help you.
Yeah,
Only a few years later to go to the same place, but at the right time, and everything
Absolutely.
was open.
Yeah.
So I love that analogy of the seed that you said. There must be a miracle there, but that miracle happens in the dark. It's unseen,
Yes.
and it takes a long time.
It does. It takes a while to germinate and to grow and to work its way towards the surface.
I know. How does it know to germinate?
Yes,
how
yeah.
does that all happen?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
how do the daffodils grow in the spring?
Yes.
As soon
Yeah.
as it warms up, what triggers that? It's just,
And they hibernate in the winter. I mean,
absolutely, it's just an
to be
incredible
fair, so do I,
process.
but not quite in the same way.
Yeah. And you bloom beautifully in
Oh,
the
thank
in
you.
March and April, Hilary. You do.
Now I understand the color choice behind today's outfit.
Absolutely. Have a daffodil sitting opposite me.
I'm wearing yellow, in case anybody hadn't
Yeah.
realised.
So, John, just before we go on a break in a few minutes, why do you think Jesus used so many agricultural examples in his teachings?
I think being a teacher, having been a teacher myself, if you can
Yeah.
make teaching relevant to the people you are teaching so that they understand where you're coming from, then they understand the message much better. And Jesus lived in a world where he was surrounded by farmers, shepherds, fishermen.
Right.
So he was talking to the ordinary people of his time in a language that they understood and could relate to.
Even when he talks to more educated people, like I'm thinking of the story of the businessman who gave his servants different amounts of money, and that's something that the businessmen of the district would have.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
He tailored his stories.
Yes.
It's knowing your audience. Yeah.
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 Because I was thinking, how can we still relate to those stories, to those examples now in the 21st century?
Now that so few of us are actually farming.
So we have to think about where the people who are listening to us,
Yeah.
we understand where their lives are. So perhaps we talk about the coffee shop, where we are in the world,
Yes.
social media, and all of those. The gym, where
Yes.
you're seeing people,
Yes.
but meet people where they're actually
And share your
in
own experiences.
what they can relate to. Yeah,
Knowing that some people will relate to those. I mean, for me, it's a mental health journey.
yeah,
For you, it's farming and teaching,
Yeah.
and for Amy, it's teaching
Definitely, and a variety of ages as well.
and moving countries. I mean, I've lived in another country, but I haven't had to move to another country like you have. So that's a unique experience as well.
It is indeed, and I'm not regretting it so far.
But also we have in Colchester especially, we have such an international
That is
community
true.
now. So
Yeah.
you
That
it's
is so
so
true.
important to relate
Yes.
to them
Yes.
and not just be typically British. You have to be all-encompassing for everybody to feel part of the community.
Yes, you do.
I love that. Right, guys, we're coming on a hard break here, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. We're here with Pastor John Pulford, and we're still talking about harvest and how that links to our Christian everyday life.
Absolutely.
So, you mentioned patience in the first part and how important that is
Indeed.
when
Indeed.
we await and plow and grow. And yeah, would you care to elaborate more?
Absolutely. When I was growing up, going to the annual harvest festival in the village church was a very big part of the annual the calendar, really.
Oh,
So that's
right.
the end of September, beginning of October. The whole village would gather. There would be about 4 or 5 family farms in the village, and all the farming families would be there. The men that worked on the land, men and women that worked on the land, would be there as well. And one of my favourite harvest hymns that we used to sing is one called "The Sower Went Forth Sowing,"
I
and
think I know that one.
the lyrics of that are: the sower went forth sowing, the seed in secret slept, through weeks of faith and patience, till out the green blade crept, and warmed by golden sunshine, and fed by silver rain, the fields at last were ripened to harvest once again.
Oh,
And that just shows what the Christian faith for me is all about. It's about not rushing, remembering that God is in control.
Yes,
And
that's good.
we plant a seed. We're gardeners. We plant things in our window boxes. We might have a grow bag with some tomatoes in. They don't happen instantly. It's faith, patience, watering, having them in the right position,
yes.
and God does the rest. He's just
Really does.
providing everything for God to do what God does,
Yes.
and listening to what God is expecting of us to do.
That's really
Yes.
important as
So,
well.
yeah,
Just
yes.
taking time to listen and tune in with God.
Yeah.
Yes, and not running ahead, which I tend to do, and then I fall flat on my face. So,
Yes, and we all get frustrated.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think we live in such a busy,
Yeah.
yes,
fast-paced world now
yes.
that we just need to slow down, take time.
Next day delivery, and that's not always possible. God doesn't do. He can do next day.
He can do
delivery
next day
when
delivery,
it's
very
so
surprisingly
vague.
sometimes. Yes,
That is
yes,
true,
Yeah.
That
yes.
is true. But more often than not, you've got to wait for for it to come along across the sea. It
Yes,
seems
absolutely.
by snail.
absolutely. So, and yes, communication is instant, isn't it? Emails instead of we
Yeah.
Yes.
used to be second-class post and things like that. So
Although
it's
it
just
helps if
instant.
somebody's looking at their phone, doesn't it, Amy?
It does. It does. It does. But then, should we be governed by holding that piece of technology in our hands?
No, we shouldn't.
No.
We should be.
that's true.
We should be
That's what I was trying to do earlier.
absolutely.
Teach you to be patient. She's such a good sister.
So it's a case of
Likewise.
we get bogged down by people's expectations of us and their
Yes.
expectations of ourselves, not thinking, what will people think of us if we
Yes.
don't respond instantly?
Yes.
And you think, they haven't replied to me yet. What do they think of me? Have I upset them?
Yes.
And it is so easy to
amen.
get caught in that spiral.
It is a spiral, you're right.
But
Yeah.
when you look at nature and the world out there, it's taken millions of years to get where we are, the
Yes.
planet that we live on. And it takes several months for a seed to grow and produce, or hundreds of years for an oak tree to mature and
Yes.
get there. So it's
beautiful.
just,
Yeah.
it just,
I've been studying something that's talking about the new Eden
mhm,
and how trees like oak trees will be on the banks of the river of life, and our roots will go down into the water,
mhm,
and we won't worry about deserts, and we won't worry about droughts, and that's just such a beautiful image, I think, of just myriad of different types of tree, oaks and cypress and willows and all sorts, just by the water, by the riverbanks, with their roots going deep into the water. And that's Christ's living water.
Mm-hmm. And when you think what a tiny thing that they start from, the acorn and the chestnut or the ash seed, the willow seed, they're all absolutely tiny, but they grow into these magnificent trees that are just incredible.
Isn't that what God always does? He takes something, or we feel insignificant at time.
Yes.
And he takes that and works with that. And when I sometimes stop and pause, I'm like, I don't know how I made it here.
No, well, sometimes he takes your little tiny flame of a spark of an idea, and he turns it into a big fire somewhere completely other.
Absolutely.
You didn't know that you were looking in one direction and he was taking you in another. And it's just amazing. And it fits. It always fits.
That is true.
And sometimes on that journey, as we in farming and growing crops, you have times of cold. So things stop growing and slow down for a time.
Yes.
They lay dormant. You think nothing's happening.
Yes.
You have times of drought when things dry up and you think, oh my word, is it worth it? But then something will happen, the rain will come, and then everything starts to grow again and it's green. It was like that this year. At the beginning we had a very dry spring.
Yes,
some of the crops were looking really sad and thought, crumbs, it's going to be really bad. And then a couple of heavy good rain falls and things really start to grow and blossom again. So
tourist industry wasn't, but the farmers were happy.
Absolutely.
And actually it's the farmers that feed us, so I'd rather they were happy than anybody else.
Yes. And that's again with the harvest festivals. It's being thankful for the food that we've got.
Yes.
And
thankful to those who grew it and produced it, and thank you to the God who created it.
And those who distribute it as well.
Yes.
It's a whole process, and we tend to take for granted, I think, in this day and age, that we can have whatever food we want, whatever time of year we want it.
Yeah.
When there's a whole process there to get it, it onto our plates.
To walk into a supermarket and buy some meat that's wrapped in plastic, or get some vegetables washed and prepared, and not recognise that these are things that grew the vegetables grew in the ground. The cows didn't.
We hope so.
But they ate the grass that grew in the ground.
Yes, they did.
That's it.
Yes, they did.
That's it. Yeah.
And milk comes in plastic bottles. Actually, it's gone through a big, long process to get to our shelves. And we just need to remember where all these things come from, that there are animals behind the meat, that there are plants behind the vegetables and fruit.
And that there is a big community behind everything that we enjoy.
Indeed.
Yes.
People behind the scenes whom we do not see, or we may not know their names, but they make it all possible.
And our children grow up now not knowing where a burger comes from or something like that.
True, yes.
And they don't know.
Sometimes it is better not to know.
If you mustn't think about it too much, but they don't know what a cow looks like, or you show them a picture. What is it? And it's really quite.
Or they recognise a cow and they recognise the burger. They don't put the two together.
Yeah. So it's
Do you have a favourite Bible story?
Or verse?
I think that passage from Ecclesiastes that talks about times and seasons is a very powerful one, especially when it tells a time to reap and a time to sow. It's just remembering, and which links also with another one of my favourite verses from Esther, that we are here for such a time as this.
Yes.
And it's God's time, not our own. And it's just...
Christians talk a lot about everything has a season. And this is why everything does have a season.
It does,
and sometimes you're a farmer, and sometimes you're a teacher.
Indeed.
And then sometimes you move into being a pastor. Natural progression.
But there is patience in that journey.
Yes.
And I keep thinking of the fruit of the Spirit now, because you mentioned all that. You mentioned the patience, the gentleness, the showing up every day.
Self-control.
Yes.
The discipline to actually do that.
Yes, to be there, to show up for your crops, no matter what the weather. You can't take a day off, can you, John, when you're farming?
No, especially if you're livestock farming, because dairy farming, they need to be milked twice a day, every day.
And they need to be fed.
And watered.
Young Matilda needs her bottle.
Twice a day, yes, she does.
So just to, I've been curious and asking all our guests this so far. Is there a specific scripture you've been drawing strength from lately?
Yes, it's from Matthew 6, and it's about, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will look after itself.
Yeah.
I was, and think about the lilies of the fields and the birds in the air. Each one of them is known to God, and how much more special are we, and how much more He loves us. And think about today. Worry about today's worries today, and don't worry about what happens tomorrow. And God will give you the grace to deal with what is coming.
Yes. And He does.
He does, absolutely.
He always shows up.
He doesn't give you anything that you can't handle.
And at that, folks, we're just going to take a short break and we'll be back with you soon. And we're back. But before we go, John, there's a pop quiz I like to ask all our guests the first time they come on.
Okay.
If you come on another time, I might change the questions. I'll think about that one. But for this time, morning or evening?
Morning.
Tea or coffee?
Depends on the time of day.
Cat or dog?
It's a draw. We have one of each.
And their names?
Martha is the dog, Lazarus is the cat.
Love it. Old or New Testament?
New Testament, but there are some great messages in the Old Testament. We can learn a lot.
True. Absolutely. NIV or?
I'm an NIV man, but I do like to use the Message to help explain stories in a more contemporary way.
Fair enough. Yes, I like different translations too, because they can explain something in a different way, but it means the same thing.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And on that note, folks, it's time to wrap it up, but not before we say thank you, John.
My pleasure. It's been great to join you. Thank you very much.
We hope you'll be coming back again.
Indeed, I will.
Wonderful.
And until then, folks, stay strong, be blessed, and keep listening to our podcast.
And it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from her.
And it's goodbye from them.
Bye.
Bye.